an advocate for their own health in many different ways, but diet, and I'm not just saying about gaining and losing weight, but diet, quality of food is so important for them because that directly affects your microbiome, which then directly affects your performance.
Right. And essentially, it's how do we take advantage of the food that we're eating. And I'm a firm believer that I get asked all. You got it.
I shouldn't have taken it off the all.
Okay. What's up? My name is Jyim Ofori-Atta, certified personal trainer and a holistic health coach.
My name is Shireen. I'm a registered dietitian, integrative health practitioner, holistic health coach, and much more.
And we're going to be here breaking down wellness for you. Let's vibe out, the Jyim Life podcast. Okay, so you were telling me about a term that is actually pretty new to me, that I haven't heard. And I want to make sure that I have a firm understanding of it and kind of its impact on the body, and that's fecal matter?
Well, it's not, so there's a study.
Okay.
Well, there's a lot of studies actually that have been coming out that this whole athlete mentality, elite athlete mentality is not just a mentality. It's actually, they're studying the fecal matter, which expresses the gut microbiome. So what's going on in someone's gut. So they're examining the fecal matter of these elite athletes, and then they're discovering that it's different than your average Joe.
Okay.
So now they're thinking, okay, is it the chicken or egg? Is it that the athlete tends to have a healthier gut, or these people with a healthier gut tend to become elite athletes? We don't really know, but there definitely is something there.
Right.
And this is what I was telling you about, and guess I love talking about poop, but anyway, so they did like a study where they took the fecal matter from one elite athlete, and they very carefully injected it into the gut of an athlete that was sick and had some issues with their gut, and it actually helped them rehab so much quicker and better with getting that fecal transplant. So I think that's what you were talking about, fecal transplant, which is like a poop transplant.
It's interesting. And then what I think about for me personally, I played college basketball, boxed for a little while, and the amount of food that I'm able to eat comfortably greatly decreased after I finished playing. Right? Like it was an insane difference where before, when I was playing basketball and training and doing all these things, sometimes 3-4 hours a day, I feel like I could eat anything.
Right. You were burning it
so quickly, right?
Yeah.
And in such high amounts. But then I would say probably, it wouldn't happen instantly, but after I stopped playing basketball, after I stopped training, I still kept training, but not as intensively as I was, it took about 2 to 3 months, and I was like, oh, I just can't eat everything I see and digest it and then utilize the energy like I used to.
Right. And that happens to like so many young athletes. A lot of young athletes, gymnasts, basketball players, whatever you're doing, wrestlers, especially when the sport is so physically focused, like you need to put on this much weight, you need to lose this much weight, you need to look a certain way. You're so focused on this and you're training so many hours a day, and then and you may, I don't know what you ate in high school playing basketball, but you're probably going to McDonald's sometimes or eating food that wasn't the greatest, and it was probably going right through you, right?
Yeah.
You didn't have issues with it. And then what happens is, for a lot of those young athletes, they have the athlete mentality, they have the athlete gut, and then they have the athlete metabolism. And even if you're not eating the greatest, you're like, okay, your body's burning through it. And then boom, you either get injured or you stop or you slow down or you're not training or conditioning as many hours a day. And then you see the difference in your body.
Right. That's when you see that big difference.
Yeah.
And then I think it's almost kind of addressing that mentality that so many people have. And we spoke about this briefly before, is training like an athlete. People think like training it is hard and as intense as you can, and ignoring the signs of rest and relaxation, which could be a lot of times counterproductive, right?
Yeah.
So one thing that I always make sure with my clients, especially the ones who have progressed to a level where they want to increase intensity of the workouts, is I always make sure I let them know, like, you don't have a game that you're preparing for, right? So we have to remember that when we're watching a lot of these athletes, and I've trained, NFL players, NBA players, WNBA, professional boxers, and I have to push them to a certain point because the match or the game is more important than the discomfort they feel in the moment.
Right.
Right?
Or
So,
their long-term health.
right, or their
Yeah.
long-term health.
Their longevity in general, physically, mentally.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
that's the most important thing. So it's like if I have an athlete come in and they know that they have, a tryout coming up in 3 weeks and their livelihood depends on it, that's their love and their passion. As much as I may want to scale back, they're like, yeah, if you don't do this, I'm going to figure out a way to get it done.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
do it.
Yeah, but there's also a safer way to do that for them. There's always like a safer way. There's always like a way to maneuver around the injury more than if you just completely disconnected from your body and you're like, F this. I'm going to just go as hard as I can go, and my body doesn't matter because all I need is this win. Because even for those athletes, it usually isn't one last game. They're usually going to have to go into another season or something else or summer training or whatever it is. And so we do think of that short term, but even now, athletic trainers are starting to realize, like, I can mentally push them so they can mentally push their bodies, but even part of that mental push is like being in tune with your body and saying, okay, like if something happens with like a left maneuver that I'm doing, like how can I manipulate around that to not re-injure myself? Right? It's having that physical awareness. Whereas that no pain, no gain is almost like completely disconnect from the body. Instead of it being self-care, it's like self-harm. Right? For the ego, for the win.
Yes.
But even if you get that win, it's maybe one win.
Right. But it's also a very old school mentality,
Right.
So if you look at the athletes from past, especially with like basketball, I watched a lot of basketball growing up, and you would see people like Isaiah Thomas, even Michael Jordan. They're getting injured, and their careers are ending at like 32, 33 years old. Meanwhile, you have athletes that are playing longer now because we've learned to adopt recovery and relaxation and develop that connection and awareness with the body.
Right.
Which is a big connection in terms of what we spoke about: food, exercise, training. If you're not aware of what gives you fuel, what makes you feel good, what particular points you hit within your training that are going to cause you exhaustion and cause injury, if you don't develop that connection between mind and body, it's going to lead to a place where you're not going to be able to do anything anyways.
Exactly.
Right.
And it's even if it's like a short-term little spark of joy, we're living longer too, so we want to think longevity. Whether we're an athlete or whether we're just like someone who wants to go to a gym like this and push themselves really hard, you could still push yourself hard past your comfort level without pushing yourself into the self-harm realm of things. It's knowing where that is, and that just comes from that practice of self-awareness. Think about how basketball changed. Basketball changed so much when a coach like Phil Jackson came in. Phil Jackson would like work on the mentality. He would tell them to meditate and focus, and it was like, physically he would push them, but then it was like everyone's like, this is so weird, basketball and like meditation, or like you see now like some of the greatest basketball players practice yoga, and like they're like, oh, okay, or Pilates. But you think about it, it's like these sports have actually changed because this is helping that financial and physical outcome of the sport itself. And even though it doesn't seem to fit, you're right, that was such an old school mentality, but the old school mentality was like, you said 1 or 2 fights and you're done.
Right. And then also too, I guess going back to the gut and digestion and microbiome, what I'm thinking is during these times when I'm working out 3 to 4 hours a day, sometimes twice, the efficiency of my body to extract what it needs from the food must just work at a higher level than somebody who's not working out at that intensity. So if we're kind of drawing the correlation between exercise, high intensity exercise for extended amounts of time, pushing your body to new limits, it's also going to have some impact on your digestion.
It will, but you have to think about, again, the chicken or egg. Can you be that active and do those high intensity exercises because you have a strong gut? Or do you have a strong gut because of the exercise?
Right.
It may be a little bit of both,
Right.
which probably is.
Right.
But the school of thought is now like, do athletes just have like a really great gut? Or is it just that they're, these athletes are building this immunity and this microbiome in time through all of the exercise and all of the food and all of the nourishment and everything that they're getting in their training?
Right, right. So it's almost, but wouldn't that have to then question if people are born with a certain capacity to be able to be an athlete?
But that's like the whole light bulb thing. Like,
Right.
are people born? And then can you transfer this onto someone? So is it like your physical genetics, or is it like your microbiome genetics? Like, do you
Right.
just have a really strong gut, and so therefore you grow better, you absorb food better. There are like these studies out there saying that height has such a small amount to do with your genetics, and it's just all about what you eat and how you absorb the foods
Your
that you
height?
eat. Yes.
Oh, wow.
I mean, it's questionable, but
That's right,
I'm just
right.
saying, like, people are bringing these things up because that gut-brain barrier, that your gut and liver, the way your body detoxifies, the way your body digests and absorbs food is so, so important in your
Right.
overall performance in day to day, whether it's you using your brain most of the day or using your body. It's
Right.
all pretty much the same. It's about just the function of that hub
Right.
and how you're going to utilize that.
Right, right, which is important. And then I'm sure even though we may be born, right? Let's say if that's the case, would there be certain ways to be able to increase the efficiency of your gut and its ability to extract nutrients and things like that?
So there's always things to do, before a child is even conceived. The conditions of both the sperm and the mother who's holding the child, these are all important. These are all good places to start. When a child is in the womb, it's the foods that you're eating that are really important. So you don't want to be eating foods filled with like preservatives, processed foods with glyphosate. So like if you could do organic or, eat a well-balanced meal or not be eating out of packages all day or drinking soda all day. Those are really important things. Then when the child is born, are you breastfeeding them? That also helps with the gut, the colostrum that the baby gets. And then, some others can't breastfeed. So what type of formula are you giving them? Are you giving them formula with a bunch of additives and preservatives that's already basically shaving off their gut lining, or are you giving them something that's gentle and digestible? And then it builds up to, when the child is pre-puberty, and then you want to make sure they're getting enough protein and they're eating whole foods. So all of these, there's so many different phases of life where you can optimize your health through diet and through lifestyle.
Right.
Even things like screen time with kids. And then even when you're an adult, if you're an athlete, you shouldn't be sitting in front of the television. You don't even have time to do that, but you really shouldn't, because that actually drains your energy.
Right.
So all of the things that you're doing, diet, lifestyle, supplementation, needs to be based on your own individualized body.
Right.
Some people are just born with a really strong gut, so they don't need as much support. And then some people aren't, and they need more help with like digestive enzymes and their stomach acids. So some people might eat steak and not be able to digest that. So then we say, okay, well, why don't you take digestive enzymes so you can absorb what you need from that?
Right.
Because if you're not digesting your food, again, your athletic performance is going to be very poor.
Right.
It's like no one's going to eat a steak and go run like a marathon. and that's the thing, is that you also have to know when to time your food, how to fuel appropriately, so you're not pulling all the energy into your digestion
Right.
without restricting and without putting your body at jeopardy of of malnourishment or whatever. So that's important, but everybody is so different. That's why I don't like to go on like social media and say, try this supplement, it saved my life. Because even if it saved my life, it might not save your life. Some supplements are great for everybody, and then some people don't need a probiotic, and some people really need a probiotic. Every probiotic is not the same. All foods are not created equal. An apple you pick from a tree in your backyard is very different than an apple you buy at Whole Foods or at Ralph's or a supermarket that's shiny and red, covered in a bunch of stuff. Your gut's gonna digest that very differently too. So athletes need to be an advocate for their own health in many different ways, but diet, and I'm not just saying about gaining and losing weight, but diet, quality of food is so important for them, because that directly affects your microbiome, which then directly affects your performance.
Right. And essentially, it's how do we take advantage of the food that we're eating? And I'm a firm believer that I get asked all the time as far as like how can I improve, let's say, gut health, or even how could I get more protein? And I think the biggest thing, and you probably say the same, is just starting with whole foods, right? So a client will come to me and say, what protein powder I should get? I said, let's use protein powder as a time saver when you don't have the time to be able to get to the whole food. Because when you eat the whole foods, now it's building your gut to be able to break down food and increase the capacity and efficiency of that, right?
Exactly.
Which is very important. And I think it's a lot of times just shifting our focus when it's deciding what to eat. And of course, we're always fighting commercialization, right? Like all the time. And with commercialization, it's always what's packaged quicker, what's easier to get to. And usually things that are on the shelf have been packed with a lot of things that are there to keep it on the shelf longer, which is going to negate healthy gut or your body's ability to break down foods, right? So we have to remember that those foods that are on the shelf, well, they're there for the person doing the marketing, right? They're not there for the person that is doing the consuming and eating,
right?
Which is two very different things.
And convenience is very tempting.
Yes.
Because we live in a very fast-paced life. So I always say that more convenient the food, the probably more additives it has, usually, not all the time. But there's so many Whole Foods you could just grab and go to. And the thing is, it's that people are so conditioned to, this marketing of like, grab and go, we don't have time, or takeout or fast food, and healthy fast food even, and they're like, it's healthy. You have to know that anything that you eat from out is gonna probably have at least 3 to 5 ingredients that you probably wouldn't add to it if you were cooking it at home. And ingredients that it doesn't need for nourishment, right? So even if you're eating healthy out, that's okay. Sometimes we have to, but you still want to minimize that, because you're eating, you don't know what oils they're using or whatever, which if they use seed oils, that's even harder on your gut. Or if they're, frying something to cook it quicker, or it's been sitting on the shelf, then the nutrient content goes down, or whatever. If it's under a heat lamp, it's like, you cook vegetables sitting under a heat lamp for a long time and it's overcooked, you're not absorbing much from it. So these are all the things you want to take into account. When you say like use a protein powder when time is an issue, yes. I always say it's better than nothing.
Yeah.
But better than nothing should not be your day-to-day intake.
Right. Yeah.
So finding like when you need to do the better than nothing, when you can do the like, okay, this is good enough or it's decent, and then when you could do the like the 80%, which is like, this is really great for my body. And I know that this agrees with me. I know that my gut's gonna like it. I know that this fiber is gonna help feed my gut microbiome. I've taken the supplements that I need, and then keeping a regimen every single day of making sure you're getting a good balance of everything that you need. It's not just, you're going to have those off days, but it's okay. You pick up the next
Right.
day, especially if you're training hard. And you don't have to be an athlete to be training hard.
Right.
Look, think about it. Don't you know so many people that want to train so hard and they're not getting enough protein? So what's going to happen after they've trained hard to their
Muscle
body?
depletion. Yeah. That it's and I also we have to remember too we're at a time where athletic training, high intensity training is extremely like it's prevalent and it's attractive.
Yeah.
Right? So people are turning on but I think we're looking at it differently. And of course part of our job is always dispelling myths, right? So I get these Instagram messages like, how about this workout? I'm like, not yet, right? And it's very attractive because I think in general, the public draws this correlation of if I do these exercises, I'll get in shape faster and I'll be great. But that's not the case. You want to get it to the point where your body makes the most out of whatever exercise you decide to do, right? Which includes after we do a weight training session, your body's ability to break down the protein, utilize it to build up the muscle mass, right?
Right.
So I'm always trying to draw that correlation between food and exercise with my clients because they would rather work out super hard than starve themselves sometimes, like when they first come in. And it's like, no, that's probably the worst thing you could do. But then it goes back to what you said earlier. It's we have to kind of reframe how we look at our program. It's not to get immediate results, it's to build our body to get the results we want.
Yeah.
Which is two different approaches, right? I can cut calories, I can do high intensity workouts, and then I may see a difference in my body. Chances are you will. But then over the long run, that can go in the other direction. But if we say, no, I want to build my body so that it can burn more fat, so that it can build more muscle, so that I can be more mobile, all those things, then over time you'll see you get stronger and stronger and stronger and have it built.
Well, it's the difference between, listen, it's like, I'll give a good example for a man. It's the difference between wanting a one-night stand and wanting to wife a girl up.
Right. Big
Okay,
difference.
like if you're building, you're investing towards something, you're gonna take your time and you're gonna build the best foundation to actually have a future with this person, just like your body. If you don't care and all you want is to feel good for 1 second, then you're gonna go for the quicker fix. And that's in anything. I get so many people calling me and saying, I wanna lose 10 pounds. How quickly can I lose 10 pounds? Can I lose 10 pounds in 1 week? Can I lose 10 pounds in 2 weeks? I'm going to this party. Like, don't call me if that's what you're trying to do. Because to me, every time you do that to your body, you're harming your body. Because that's not real life. Then you're tricking your metabolism, then you're tricking your body, then you're creating higher stress on your body, which then in turn long-term causes problems for your metabolism, for your hormones, and all of that. So it's really about investing in something forever or investing in something just for that ego boost, instant gratification. Wow, I can't believe I did that high that people are looking for. And that's kind of the dangers of having this no pain, no gain athlete mentality in your day-to-day workouts. Because your day-to-day workouts, you're not training for an event.
Right.
You're training for this body that you're living in. And people lose sight of that because of all of the social media, competition of like, oh my gosh, this girl has abs, I want abs. Even if it's a filter, people still know that and they don't care. They don't have realistic expectations. Or, a guy wants to look good because summer's coming, and then after summer, he turns into a bear and hibernates for the winter. You see that a lot, but it's not even about appearances. It's about what is that doing to your body, that inconsistency, the sudden shock to the body. It's that slow progression that actually gets you somewhere and gives you that longevity.
Yeah. Real quick, and I want to touch upon one thing that I do address with a lot of my coffee drinkers, right? Is I know so many people that love coffee first thing in the morning. And in addition to it being acidic, it also, you want to make sure at least you're hydrating enough. So I think a simple adjustment you can add on to this if you feel so is that at least just getting some warm water with some electrolytes before you go right to the coffee first thing in the morning.
Definitely.
Right?
Yeah. Coffee should not be the first thing that touches your lips.
Right.
It just shouldn't.
Yeah.
If you want it to be and you're wondering why you have stubborn weight, or you have a lot of anxiety, or you have brain fog, that's probably one of the first things to address. It's a very simple change. Drink warm water with lemon, electrolytes, maybe a little salt, something like that. Get that in your body. If you could wait 90 minutes, great, because the first 90 minutes you wake up, you have higher cortisol. Caffeine spikes your cortisol, so you don't need excessive stress hormones. Take advantage of the natural energy that your body has. And then, even better, if you want to really beef it up, eat some protein before you have a coffee so it doesn't spike and drop.
Right.
Those people that are getting that head hanging at 3 p.m. or 3 to 4 and can't keep their eyes open, it's probably because you've had a spike in energy or cortisol or caffeine, and then you burn out in the afternoon because you don't have a slow climb. If you put protein and fiber in your body, if you have a few eggs and maybe some veggies, and then you have your coffee, that coffee will last you longer.
Big difference.
Yeah. So every little thing, water, wonderful. Warm water with lemon and electrolytes, even better. Waiting with warm water, even better. Eating something before, the greatest. But coffee's a big thing. I love my coffee sometimes too, but I don't need it. When you need it and you can't function on it, that's when your adrenals are getting screwed up. So that's a flag that you need to address.
Right.
Because then that's also like a vicious cycle, and then you can drink more to get more of like a boost of energy. You drink Celsius or something to get your energy up.
The continuous. If you're constantly, like, your body's built to take advantage of the foods that eat to give you enough energy to go throughout the day. If you find yourself constantly looking for new sources of energy, whether it's the Celsius or the coffee, that means that you want to make an adjustment in hydration and protein intake to stabilize some of those sugar spikes and crashes.
Right.
Right. I just hope that we can get more people to invest in the long run, right?
I hope so too.
Instead of those immediate
I've been very
hits.
committed to this movement.
Right?
But people are shifting and they're changing. And I think people are shifting and changing because people are tired of suffering. And by suffering, I don't mean they necessarily have a very serious chronic issue, but people are tired of being tired. They're tired of having brain fog. They're tired of not performing well at their workouts. Imagine someone like coming and having a personal trainer like you and always being like, oh, I'm so tired. Like, you want to have energy for this. This is supposed to make your life better. So I think slowly but surely, very slowly but surely, people are starting to see the light. They're starting to understand that there is no quick fix, that you really do have to invest in your body long term.
Yes, yes. And it's that understanding that moment where you feel like, okay, I went on this crash diet. I did, high intensity exercises, and I reached this point where I looked the way that I wanted to look for a day, but I don't feel the best. Because that's tougher to maintain, and then you end up having to go back to where you started, or sometimes even worse. Now it's going to take you longer to get back to where you were, versus if you just took that steady pace in the beginning, you'll actually see that happens a lot faster.
Right.
Right? So if you just take it and be patient, it's still going to happen quicker than the quick fix that you thought was going to be that fast.
Well, because you're not on a roller coaster.
Right.
Slow and steady is the way to go. And like sometimes we learn the hard way, and sometimes we're just innately accepting of that concept. But it really depends on the person. And when someone really, has a more impulsive mind, they're looking for that quick, like I got it, or I achieved that, or I lost that weight, and then they pay for it later. And really just depends on how high your threshold is for discomfort.
Yes.
Some people are okay with that forever, to go on this roller coaster, and some people are like, I don't want to go on this roller coaster. I actually want to do it the right way and just like live in peace.
Yes. Yeah. So I think that's something we can just encourage. Take care of your body, take care of your gut, and it'll take care of you in return.